Hello crafters, and welcome to the next stop on your seemingly endless search for the perfect source of efficient experience in Minecraft. The monstrosity in front of you is my attempt at doing exactly that, and today I will show you how to build the automated chicken coop experience battery. Let's get crafting. So this machine consists of three primary parts. The first and most obvious being the chicken coop itself. This is where the chickens will live. All you need is a fenced in or walled in area that they can't get out of, a backstop of some sort that the eggs will smash against to create the chickens. A target area to collect the experience is handy but not necessary for this, and a chest to contain some items that'll help you along the way. The second part is really the core of the machine. It can be broken up into two subcomponents, the first being the collection system, right here, automated by the carts going back and forth, bringing the eggs to it. Those are then captured in the chests and hoppers below. They feed the droppers, that feed the dispensers, that shoot the eggs against the backstop. This is really where your automated creation comes from. The third and final component of the machine is the subterranean portion. It will align with the chicken coop and is simply a grid of track and a hopper cart that travels back and forth underneath the coop in order to collect everything that the chickens drop. It'll be feathers, meat, eggs, everything except the experience. And right here underneath my target, I have an optional array of hoppers that will assist in some of that collection and help automate it all and keep it tidy. Those three pieces together are what make this machine possible. Before we get started with the construction, we should probably go over some pros and cons and what you will need to have in order to get the construction completed. The plus side of this is you get unlimited experience and lots of it really fast as you want it. It only takes 20 minutes to recharge the whole system. It can also, if you set it up properly, provide unlimited food, and who doesn't love having a giant machine gun? The downsides are this is a massively expensive thing in terms of resource expenditure. It is also very high amount of lag it creates in very short order. So if your hardware will not accommodate lots of movement, probably not the best idea for you to build a large one of these. Probably still get away with a smaller one, but you're going to need to limit your size. It's not 100% automated, but it is very close, and it's also extremely noisy since it's full of chickens. So keep that in mind when you're trying to pick a location. The actual stuff you will need: 64 droppers. I'm sure you're aware of what all this stuff costs. I'm not going to go individually into the materials for each of them. 65 chests. These are optional, but they do help keep the system primed so you don't overuse it on accident. 162 hoppers. Lots and lots of iron needed to make this. 89 of them are optional if you don't want to use the chests, but again, it will help you a lot in making sure that it stays primed and is always available for use. 7 dispensers will be your machine gun components. 3 repeaters just to keep your redstone signal traveling. At least 1 hopper cart. Mine uses 5. In the final here you'll see it all put together. Building blocks, whatever you want to use. I'm using cut sandstone and glass for most of this build, but it really doesn't matter which ones you use. You're going to need lots of track, powered track, detector rail, power sources, levers, redstone torches, however you like to power your rail. It just depends how large you make it, how much of it you'll need, but again, you're looking at lots of iron, and at least you have a use for some of your gold with the powered rail. You'll need 2 observers to keep this all running, 2 pistons to go with them, and 2 levers to keep the machine primed and to turn the machine gun on when it's ready. You're also going to need lots and lots of eggs. The more eggs you have to start, the sooner it will prime itself and get going. Once you have a full batch of chickens, the eggs produce themselves and it keeps itself in pretty good running order. You'll need seeds to get the chickens to come close to you so you can quickly harvest their experience. A sword, one that is enchanted well enough to kill with a single swing, is highly encouraged, but you don't necessarily need that. It just takes a little bit more time to swing twice. You'll need fence or some kind of building block to create your chicken coop to keep them all contained. And if you want, 25 carpet to create the target area. Just kind of helps feed the system and keep your inventory from getting too polluted as you're killing all the chickens. With that, let's get building. So you found a place to build your chicken coop, placed your first corner post down. You're going to want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles back from it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles up to start the floor of what is going to be your water collection trap. 9 tiles across and 8 deep. And then we're going to build the walls 3 up, and we're going to leave gaps in the ceiling like this, a single one here, a long beam, 2 gaps, another long beam, 2 gaps, long beam, and a single gap. If you're not familiar, water flows 8 tiles, and we need to place it in every other square, and that will give us all the water we need to flow right to the edge and bring all of our eggs, feathers, and meat out to the hoppers and dispensers that will eventually be creating the chickens. If you want to put slabs or a second row of blocks on the bottom here to get rid of the particle effect, you can certainly do that. You just need to make sure you build your dispensers low enough that when they shoot the eggs, they don't run into the bottom of the floor and spawn your chickens all out in the middle of nowhere. Construction of that's pretty basic, so we're not going to get into it in great detail. These open spaces in the ceiling, we are going to be placing dispensers or droppers pointed down like that in all of these slots. Once those are all in place, we will be coming to the top and we will be putting a hopper on each one of those. Just hold down Control and you should be able to place the hopper on top of the dropper, and we're going to fill those all back up and then we'll be back. So you can see I've got that portion of it complete. An optional step that simply gives you more capacity is to also add a series of chests on top of your hoppers and then hoppers on top of those chests. All this does is give you, again, more capacity to have the mine carts passively filling up hoppers, which feed chests, which feeds hoppers, which feed the droppers, and yeah, gives you more time that you could be away without having any system loss in the battery. And that is how that is all set up. It's the basic structure of it. We'll come back and add the redstone to actuate it all in the future. Now go down to where the dispensers are going to be in place to create our chickens and get rid of the eggs. We're back, and you may have noticed that when I originally built this, I was using dispensers instead of droppers on accident. That will not work. You absolutely do need these to be droppers, not dispensers. Sorry about that, but I've got it all fixed up. Let's keep going. From here, we need to build down 3 blocks, and we can put hoppers on top of these all the way across, except for the first one. So we'll have 7 of these hoppers on top of placeholder blocks, and then one hopper into the side of each block. And then we will need a second row behind that we can put our dispensers up against. Like so. We're going to keep these blocks here, and you don't have to use glass for this, but I like to be able to see what's going on inside the machine. You do need to build up a little bit of a catch here so that your eggs do not overflow to the side too much, and they are directed into the hoppers the way that they should be, so that you don't lose any of your fuel for the machine. There we go. That is the entire lower portion. So the carts will bring eggs to the top, the hoppers will pull them out, they'll get fed from the hopper through the chest, through the hopper to the dropper. When we turn the machine on, it'll drop the eggs. The water feeds them into these hoppers, which puts them into the dispensers. And when we flip the switch, the dispensers will shoot the eggs out and make more chickens. And that's the core of how this build works. I'll get the rail stuff together and we'll start into that portion. Before we get started on the rail, we'll set up the chicken coop itself. Remember, we came out 7 spaces. That is because the dispensers themselves will shoot arrows, eggs, things that are actual projectiles a long ways, and other items, feathers, chicken meat, things like that, will drop short and they will not end up in the coop. If you decide to build your structure a little bit lower, you can move the fence closer. I wouldn't suggest building it any higher or very much lower for reasons that'll kind of become apparent as we go through the tutorial here. The fence itself will need to be at least as wide as your structure. If you decide to multiply this, out wider because you've got a computer that'll handle the lag, more power to you. You could certainly build the coop wider if you wanted more room for chickens. In this case, it is 11 wide, so we are going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 wide. Be the same as our structure. And as far as the depth of it, it simply needs to be an odd number. That'll become apparent why when we start doing the track for the collection below. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 seems to be a pretty good number for a minimum size. You'll still get quite a bit of experience out of this, and the lag is pretty minimal. The whole idea here is to have enough chickens to where you have your experience on demand. So I would suggest at least 11 by 13 chicken coop to keep them all living in. In one of the corners, you're going to, if you want a lot more efficiency out of it, create a 5 by 5 grid of hoppers pointed down. When you are eventually killing the chickens to get the experience out of them, these hoppers will collect all of the eggs, all of the meat, everything that the chickens end up dropping, and it'll get collected straight into the hoppers before it ends up in your inventory. This is extremely handy because as you're killing these chickens, you will get lots and lots of inventory, and it just plugs it up. You have to drop it all later. The experience will not go in there. Putting the carpet on top simply keeps the experience from falling into the hoppers, and it'll all get pulled back into you. Otherwise, you'd need to walk around the hoppers and stand on top of them. This is purely for convenience, but it does help quite a bit. The other portion of the chicken coop you're going to need is a backstop of some kind, something that the dispensers will shoot the eggs at to break them. The dispensers actually shoot out in a cone shape, so they go a little bit up, a little bit down. So your wall will need to be at least as wide as the coop itself. And when the eggs do break, they also, the chickens will flutter down at an angle, not necessarily fall straight down, so some of them will have a tendency to go over the fence. This is frustrating. And then you have chickens running around all over the place, and that's never fun. So put a little bit of a lip on the side. You could also do this just shooting to a rock face or a mountain wall behind your chicken coop. Just have them falling straight down into the fenced area. It's really kind of up to you. Something like that the dispensers can shoot at, and then the eggs will fall down inside, and you'll get to see how that all works once the machine's working or functional. On to setting up the delivery system. The eggs will be collected underneath the coop, obviously, but we need to get them up top. To do this, I simply build a staircase with some powered rail. I'm using switches for power in this case. Needs to come out one block past your dispenser area. All the way up, it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles past the first hopper on top. To power the carts, I'm using a switch with a powered rail. You could do this with redstone torches or levers, whichever you'd like. The only thing to keep in mind is that powered blocks will lock hoppers. So you need to keep the power source for whatever your powered rail is away from the hoppers. And that's why we have these gaps here at both ends. Using this switch with powered rail technique ensures that the carts will always travel in a single direction. If they try to go backwards, the unpowered rail will stop them. This will be important in a minute. You also want the carts to go slow enough that they have time to deposit hopefully more than one item at a time in the hoppers as they go. And this technique here with the switched rail and the powered rail keeps them moving but not full speed, and gives them a chance to have themselves fully emptied before they go back down and start picking up more. So it's really just a switch, a powered rail, and rail over the top of the hoppers. We're going to come all the way around the end here. Put another switch and a powered rail here, just to keep it moving around to the back side of our delivery system, and bring it all the way down to the end. Another optional setup you can do here, I like to try and run 2 cars at a time. You can put in a setup like this, and that will send a redstone signal to the powered rail over here. When we get a hopper cart on here, it will stop, and it will wait until we have another cart comes and trips that. It'll be released. You'll have one on top that is dispensing its cargo into the hoppers, and one that's down in the bottom collecting more eggs and stuff. So you can kind of double your production that way and have more experience on demand as fast as you can. The downhill side is simply downhill to underneath the coop to start collection. One quick correction before we move forward. I added this block right here in order to make this turn possible. All it does is make the track skip forward one square. Had to rebuild the whole staircase, but it doesn't matter. It just has to come down, and you want your collector track to start lined up with the fence. A hopper cart will pull contents through one block, but it doesn't really work diagonally, so any of the eggs that fall close to the fence, if you start your track one in, it will not collect underneath the fence, and you'll end up with eggs all around the outside of your coop. They're not ending up in your system. Down below, I'm using the same technique as above to ensure the carts only go one direction. It'll trip the switch, power itself down, hopefully goes slow enough that it collects everything above it, go around the corner, and back down again. To start building this, you'll need to clear out enough room to stand in, and then you come down and you will add a row of dirt or whatever you're building under. You'll get your turn, you'll lay down a switch, a powered rail, and the rest of your rail down to the turn. Again, more dirt. Go back, make your turn, switched rail, powered rail, and the rest of it all the way down. Again, lining up with the fence underneath always, and you will continue this back and forth until you finally get to the last bit of rail, which will be underneath that fence, and come around up the hill to the powered rail, back up to the top, where your carts will start putting everything they've collected into the top of the machine. I'll go ahead and finish that up now, and then we'll get another cart going. So for any of you who did better with their public school education than I did, you may have noticed earlier in the video when I said you needed to make your chicken coop an odd number of tiles deep. Well, I did 10 instead of 11. And as a result, my last track does not line up with the fence. So that is why that was important, and this is what happens if you don't get it right. Other than that, it'll still work just fine. It comes around under all my hoppers. It does almost all of the chicken coop, and the cart goes back and forth, comes around. I added one more powered rail here just to make sure it gets to those and gets all through the system. Little demonstration here. We'll put a cart on, goes down, round and round and round, hits each of those, and because the switch lights up and sends it one direction, if something happens, a mob spawns and blocks its way, it won't ever come backwards. It'll always get pushed forward, round and round and round it goes. If you do want this second cart going, you'll see it stops here on the powered rail, waits for the second cart to come back up. It trips the switch, lets the cart go, and one is feeding the top while the other's down below collecting. And you get a little bit of a double feed once everything is primed. You've got lots of chickens creating lots of eggs. Your hoppers are backed up. It'll be clearing the system twice as fast. So now that you've got it collecting, you'll need to have some chickens in your coop, obviously. I'll toss a couple eggs in there and get started on the redstone portion that automates the whole machine. Got some baby chicks growing into chickens. We've got some eggs I manually placed inside the hoppers so that the carts can collect them. They're being delivered up top. The whole machine seems to be working good, but how do we get more chickens made? You'll need to put a row of redstone between all of the droppers on the top portion, and because redstone has a limited transmit distance for the signal, you'll need to put repeaters in here to keep the signal strong enough to come all the way up from the actuators on the ground. To get the signal to go vertically, this side just has a typical spiral type of setup, and the dispensers on the bottom simply have a staircase set up coming down to where they both end in the same basic location. To get these working, we are going to take a observer and face it away from the bottom block. We're going to take pistons, put them directly in front of and to the side of those two observers. One more building block of some kind to link them together. And we're going to put redstone in those two locations. And a switch on the back. So how this works is the observer will see when the piston opens, and it'll send a pulse, a signal up through the redstone. For this side, it would be all the way to the top so that the droppers will drop, and this one would send a pulse to the dispensers so that they will shoot. Power them on, and there it is. You just saw the eggs shoot, and a couple more chicks come down. But what happens when we turn it back off, the piston closes, it observes one more change and it sends a pulse, which then opens the piston, which the observer sees, and sends another pulse, and it closes and it sends another pulse, and you end up with a very rapid two. And all of a sudden we have eggs falling down into hoppers. Those are filling the dispensers. And that's how we get the eggs from the top, where they're being stored as potential experience, down into the dispensers at the bottom so that they can become more baby chickens. How do we get the chickens made? Here's the machine gun. The eggs are shot against the back wall, and all the baby chicks get filled up inside the coop. So essentially how this works, it takes chickens 20 minutes to grow into adulthood. So about every 20 minutes you can come in here and get a full batch of chickens down to the amount of lag that your computer can handle. We'll give these chickens a little bit of time to get to full size, and we'll show you how the collection process works. With the magic of time travel, you can see my chicken coop is now a little bit bigger. I expanded it while I was waiting for the chickens to grow. And I also added some other stuff that we will go over here in just a moment that can kind of help optimize this once it's built. The next thing we will do is see how this works. In the chest, I have a sword, a pretty powerful one that'll allow me to kill the chickens with one swing. It's not entirely necessary to be one swing, but it certainly helps. And some seeds. Little information about chickens first. You get 1 to 4 experience for killing them, or 1 to 7 experience for breeding them. So if you're just want to grab a quick couple of levels, you can always come in here and breed a few. Or if you're looking to gain lots of levels quickly, you can kill them and then start the machine back up again. Just to get an idea of how much you can get how quickly, I'm going to run around, feed some of these chickens. Trying to stay on my little target area here. And I was level 0 when I started this. Just go through 2 stacks of seeds real quick. Run around randomly getting their attention. Here, chicky. Accidentally picking up some eggs as I go, but that's okay because I can drop those and the cart underneath will pick them up for me. So 2 stacks of eggs in this case. Make sure I walk around and collect all of my experience. Got me from 0 to 13.5 in just about a minute there. Pretty good if you're just looking to, get yourself from 27 back up to 30 real quick to do some enchanting or whatever your goal is there. Now, killing them on the other hand, we'll get as many as we can all together, bring them back to our target area, and you can see they start to kind of bubble. We switch to our sword momentarily, so we get the sweeping action, and a bunch of stuff falls into the hoppers underneath here, and you can see all the experience bubbling into me. Went from 13 to 17 with one swing. Get them all to come back, switch over, (17 to 20), one swing of the sword. If your computer's strong enough to keep track of all the chickens without getting too laggy, I've been able to get from 0 to level 30 in 12 swings. Just kind of depends on what your hardware is. That one wasn't very many chickens that time, but it still got me from 20 up into 21 all at once. A little more information about chickens. They take 20 minutes to age from chickie to adulthood. So with that information in mind, once you've collected as much experience as you want, you simply turn on the machine again, wait 20 minutes, and you can do this all over. So in addition to this, I've added a few things that'll help with automating it. Underneath the area where your feathers and meat would fall, I've added another set of rails, just like the ones underneath the chickens above, that will automatically collect feathers and chicken as they fall. Sorry, it's getting a little bit dark here. Let's get that taken care of, and we'll get rid of the weather as well. See, that cart picked all those up, and it comes and places them into this item sorter. This is taken from one of Wattles' tutorials. I'll put a link to that below, but you can see the dispensers, or the droppers rather, sending out chicken, eggs, and feathers. The chicken gets sorted into one, and the feathers and any other debris get dropped into this lava pool at the bottom. The chicken itself gets fed over into these furnaces, and to the right we have one of Avomance's creations. I'll also post a link to that in the description below. Automatically produces bamboo that feed the furnaces. In that way you can also create an ever-ending loop of food, and when you collect that food using the hopper locker, you can get 20 or so levels worth of experience just by emptying the chest out as well. And in that way you have a self-cleaning automatic mana or experience battery that simply requires you to every once in a while flip a switch to recharge it. See all the eggs and everything getting collected, and then turn on a machine gun to make more chickens. And as long as you don't completely exhaust everything, which takes a whole lot of very dedicated experience farming, you'll be able to keep your top portion filled, your bottom portion primed, and have a endless source of high volumes of experience on demand. Uh, Thanks for taking the time to watch all this. Please leave comments and questions below. I'll answer them as quickly as I can. Happy crafting!